Hello and welcome to the late night big board fantasy football draft on Underdog. I'm your host, Matt Holzel, and I'll be taking you through a live big board draft tonight. Appreciate you guys joining. I'm going to go ahead and send out a couple quick links, and hopefully we get a few people trickling on in here. Give me just one moment. Get the link sent out, and then we'll go ahead and get a draft going. It's always fun hanging out with the late night crowd. Real quick here, going to get it posted out on X and YouTube. Alrighty. Well, now that we got that taken care of, we can go ahead and jump into the agenda for tonight. Once again, I want to say thanks for joining me. If you're not already here and you join later and watch this best ball draft, I hope you guys enjoy the content. If you do, go ahead and give me a follow out there on X. My handle is at FantasyFitIO, or out there on YouTube, you can find my channel at FantasyFitnessIO. Also, real quick, just want to briefly talk about the project I'm working on. That's Fantasy Fitness. You can find the app at www.fantasyfitness.io. And we've got a whole bunch of good features out here on the application, starting with the news center. We get the top headlines for the day, top 50 articles from 5 major fantasy football publishing sites: Yahoo, ESPN, NBC Sports, CBS Sports, and the Fantasy Footballers. So definitely go ahead and check that out. That we've got the news center along with player pages, player profile pages, and team profile pages. And then for paid subscriptions, you can get integrate your rosters on Sleeper, Yahoo, or FFPC, and that should help you better manage your dynasty rosters, access the player contracts, player notes, team notes, roster notes. So a whole bunch of good information out there, accessible to you with the subscription, but a lot of free content as well. So that's my quick pitch on Fantasy Fitness. And then back to the main agenda item for this evening, which is a live big board draft. I'm going to go ahead and enter us into the lobby of one of these tournaments, or I should say the lobby of this tournament. Real quick before we jump in, I'll just explain the tournament. So this is the big board. This is the NFL 2026 pre-draft best ball main event tournament, I guess you could say. It's got a $10 buy-in with a 150 max entry. The advancement structure is 3 out of 12 have to make it out of the initial pod, and then 1 out of 10 make it out of the next pod, 1 out of 10 make it out of the last pod, and then you're left with a 558 seed final with an opportunity to win $200,000 for first, $100,000 for second, 65,000 for third, and so on and so forth. So go ahead and check that out. This is a 20-round draft, and we'll go ahead and commit our money to the process, $10, and we wait. So we're 8 picks away, or excuse me, 8 entrants away from filling this particular draft, depending on the traffic out there tonight on Underdog. This could take anywhere from 5 minutes to 10, 15 minutes. So we'll just have to kind of see how things go and the pace at which this fills. While we wait, I can filibuster here and just talk a little bit about the draft order thus far. And, we can take a look at the first 2 rounds and just kind of talk through player, what do you want to call it? Player cost versus, maybe where they should be going versus where they are going, and some of the risks around some of the various players at each of their respective ADPs. I think the first 2 make a lot of sense in terms of Bijan and Gibbs at the 101 and the 102, with David Montgomery now being traded down to Houston for a 4th and a 7th rounder. I think you can make the case to draft Jahmyr Gibbs number 1 overall. But I think the first 5 really are somewhat interchangeable. But it makes sense that Bijan and Gibbs would go first 2 off the board. I think Chase definitely has a strong case to be number 3. If we assume health for Burrow, which I know has been a bit of a problem for him in his career, but if Burrow is healthy, I think Chase offers probably the most upside. Stafford's getting a little bit older. Puka's been great, but it wouldn't shock me if he regresses a little bit. That being said, I think they're both good picks. JSN as well. After that, I think there's a little bit more risk with each of the remaining players in the first round. And in theory, for each additional player you go down the board, there should be, slightly more risk to that profile, hence the reason why they're going further down the board. I don't know if that's perfectly priced. I think you could make a case for Christian above Taylor, given how much more involved Christian is in the passing game. Then again, he hasn't been as efficient as of last year, running between the tackles. I think Jonathan Taylor obviously doesn't catch as many passes. So there's a case, that those could go either way. I think here with the next 2 picks, Amon-Ra St. Brown could easily go ahead of CeeDee Lamb. I think that's it's pretty easy to make that case with his projected target volume and his efficiencies, the amount that they pass in that offense. I think Brown's probably a slightly safer pick. I'm taking him over CeeDee more often than not. And then I think Achane probably deserves to be down a few pegs here. Definitely below Genty, in my opinion, and maybe even below Hampton. I'm not sure that one, it gets a little trickier, but the Miami organization and offense are going through a lot of change right now. The ownership group has never been particularly inspiring, and new coaching staff, we just don't, there's a lot of uncertainty there. So if you bake in some of those probabilities, I think it's fair to say that Achane could be going a little bit further down the board. I think Genty can obviously put up big games. We saw that last year. I think the Vegas Raiders are a pretty good ownership group that includes Tom Brady, and we're probably moving in the right direction with the new coaching staff. Clint Kubiak, who just won a Super Bowl with Seattle. I don't want to overemphasize the coach, but I do think he is a good hire. That being said, if they can get some things fixed with the offensive line, I could see a case to be made for where Genty could go above Achane and maybe even above Cook. But I think his price is pretty close to accurate outside of those minor details. He can consolidate too in the event that they don't have a good second behind him or there's injuries. He's got the profile to consolidate, although he's a little bit smaller. As is the case with Hampton, Achane, it's more difficult to make that case given his size. He's much more of a back that survives off of efficiency and explosiveness. So for those reasons, I think he could probably go a few spots lower. You can even maybe make a case below Jeremiah Love at this point, given how he did at the combine. But, you know, that's sort of where I would draw the line around Love and Malik Neighbors. All right, this draft is full and it's about to begin. With the 101, we have Gibbs coming off the board, followed by Bijan Robinson. Followed by Puka. And then here at the 104, 7 seconds. Jamar Chase, JSN, 2 picks away. CeeDee Lamb goes. I'm going to go ahead and take Taylor here at the 107. Like I said a few minutes ago, I think you could make the case for CMC and maybe even Amra for that matter. But in this particular case, I'm going to start off with Taylor. Love his explosiveness. Love his size speed combination. Hopefully, they re sign Daniel Jones and he's back fairly early in the season, although his performance will likely be diminished with his Achilles injury. Maybe that means he can keep the offense moving just enough and Taylor can survive off some additional volume early in the season. I don't know. We'll have to see. But generally speaking, I like Taylor at this price. Not the deal we were getting last year in the back half of the second round. But I do think he settled in pretty nicely here at the 107. So after that Taylor pick, we had James Cook go off at the 108. McCaffrey goes at the 109. St. Brown at the 110. And then Achane at the 111. Genty at the 112. And then first pick of the second round is McBride with the 2.1. Followed by Love. I like that pick quite a bit. Here we get the St. Brown Jefferson divisional stack with Jefferson going off at the 203. Two picks away. Whoops. Players that I like would probably be either of these two ahead of Drake London. Probably pull up Henry or Bowers. Both are accessible to me at this price. I have done a couple Saquon Go either way here. Let's go Neighbors. I generally don't like to draft injured players. I will start off by saying that. I do think he's come on pretty nicely here in the offseason with his training. Barkley's obviously a very sound pick, and I've done a couple of the Taylor Barkley starts. So figured Neighbors, Taylor would be kind of a fun way to mix it up. And again, we're playing for week 18. We're not playing for, week 1. I don't want Neighbors to miss a lot of time, obviously, but with his ceiling, I think he's probably fairly priced here. Probably, could go a few spots lower, but nothing egregious. And obviously trying to get some different combos here in the first 2 rounds. So opting or electing to go with the Neighbors Taylor stack as opposed to or Neighbors Taylor combo as opposed to the Saquon Taylor combo. Thought about Bowers as well and Henry, but in the end, this was the decision I made, and we'll just play it from here. Four picks away. Thanks again for joining, and for those that are not able to join and watch this live but are going to come in later, you're here watching a best ball mania, or excuse me, underdog best ball big board draft. Excuse me. It's really between Tet and AJ Brown for me. I think in this particular case, I'm going to go AJ Brown. I think he's due for a little bit of a bounce back season. Maybe he's not coming back to Philly. Maybe he gets traded in the offseason. Wouldn't totally shock me if that ends up happening. There are rumors that Mike Evans could go to Philadelphia. If he goes there, does that mean AJ Brown sticks around, or they get some trade? They get some draft capital for him in a trade. I don't know, but either way, if he stays in the division, then we have Neighbors Brown divisional correlation here, and if he ends up getting traded somewhere else, then so be it. Hope his volume will likely go up at some point after the trade. All right, after the AJ Brown pick, we had Kyren Williams go off at, I'll just start saying the numbers at this point. Pick 32, Ted at pick 33, Zay pretty early here at pick 34, but I do like Zay. Rice dropping. He went at pick 35, followed by Higgins, ETN, and Ladd McConkey. We're now 3 picks away from our selection in the 4th round. We'll be drafting at pick 42. A couple interesting ways to play this. We could go JMO. We could go Devontae or Devonta. I think I'm going to go Devonta, and we'll kind of get a double here out of Philly. Also like Amika, but I've been drafting a lot of him. So Kind of nice to mix it up a little bit. After I took Devonta Smith at 42, JMO goes at 43, followed by Emeka Egbuka. Strategy at this point is it's looking a little bit like a hero, but I'm not going to just draft into structure for the sake of drafting into structure. I want to get, what I perceive to be the best player available on the board at a given, at the given pick. Now, I will use, structure as sort of like a boundary condition if you're really reaching sort of the edges of, the counts you want at each position group. But, especially early on, I don't even really want to be thinking about structure right now. And this is a way I'm sort of retraining my brain to think about my builds. I want the board and the value on the board to be more of a, something that I use to make the correct pick as opposed to saying, oh, I need a tight end because I haven't drafted a tight end yet. I'm supposed to have a tight end by round 8 or whatever the, artificial number is you assign for whatever reason. So if that's not happening, then, and I'm just looking for the player on the board that I think is going to have the best, the best spike weeks or the most success overall, then, I should be using that to drive my decision making. At least that's sort of my general argument. Okay. I'm going to go with Harvey. I think at 55, this opens up a couple paths for a Bo Nix build where I think he's a little undervalued at pick 100. Some backstacking if I do go that route. If not, I do like Harvey here as sort of an explosive player on a good offense. As a number 2, I think this is he often will be your number 2. Some cases maybe your number 3 or your number 1, depending on how you're, structuring your build. But in any event, I felt like he was probably the best value on the board. I'm going to just use that as my ultimate decision making until I reach those boundary conditions. And that's not going to happen until like round 15 or something like that. We've got Hurts down here. So I definitely am motivated to get him if he's here. I could easily make the case that he should be above Caleb with his rushing upside. You can probably make the case he should be above Jaden with a longer track record. Sutton goes, so that kind of closes the door on anything I would do with Sutton. Drake May goes, and that leaves me open here to get the double. I think you can make the case that he's more valuable here than Mike Evans. I like Mike Evans, but he's 32 going on 33. He's a free agent. We don't know what his situation is going to be. In this particular case, I get Jalen Hurts. I get the double stack. I lock that up. That could create a nice advantage for this team if Jalen Hurts gets to passing the ball quite a bit, which is possible, right? There's always ebbs and flows to how these offenses operate. 2 years ago, it was extremely run heavy, and Saquon had his career year. Last year, not quite as much, a little bit more balanced. So we'll just have to see how things play out. But A.J. Brown at 31, when he was more of a second round pick for so long, I think that's hopefully decent value there in the third. And then Devontae there in the 4th also seems fairly reasonable. My kiddo's having a little bit of a situation going on, so let's see. I'll make this pick, and then I'm going to have to step out for just a sec. This is what happens when you do late night drafts and you're a parent of 2 young children. All right, the pick here is Harold Fannin. Go ahead and lock that up, and I'll be right back. The target was Fannin or Montgomery. I thought Monty would have been nice there. Once he went, I wasn't overly excited to go with Stevenson or Warren. I think they're fine, but also like Fannin at his price. Was a little surprised he went with Montgomery, but I understand why he did. Okay, 3 picks away. 1 pick away. Going quick. I'm going to fall in a little bit. I like DJ Moore or Michael Pittman or Tyler Algier. We'll go DJ Moore. I'll be right back. All right, 8 picks away. Appreciate you guys being here. This draft is going pretty cool. I think Monty would have been good there over Moore. Excuse me, not Moore. Going back a little bit. Fannin. They're close, but definitely would have liked to have grabbed Monty with his new situation. That being said, I'm going to continue to play the board and take what the board gives me at the best value. Coming into this range, Bo Nix would be a target. I don't know. We've got most people have a quarterback at this point, but not everybody. A couple different ways to play this. See if Sutton. No, he doesn't. He has some Baker reasons to maybe draft Baker. He has a reason to draft Bo Nix. No, not necessarily, but he might go naked. He went very heavy. He went Love, so that gives me Bo Nix. Love that play. Very easy to go ahead and smash the button on Bo Nix there. Got the skinny stack going with our boy RJ Harvey. Could stop at 2 with this build, but we'll see what they give us at quarterback later on in the draft. But 2 with Bo Nix and Jalen Hurts, I think, is completely reasonable. 3 is probably slightly more likely. We'll just have to see kind of what's available here. These would probably be my 3 targets in this range. Addison, Godwin, Shakir, if any of those 3 are there, followed by Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Jaden Higgins. Okay. Left me Chris Godwin. A little surprised by that, but that's an easy pick for me. We'll go ahead and lock up Chris Godwin at pick 114. Let's recap the team at this point. I think we're at that stage. So for quarterbacks, we have Jalen Hurts and Bo Nix. Running backs, Jonathan Taylor and RJ Harvey. Wide receivers, Malik Neighbors, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, DJ Moore, and Chris Godwin. And at tight end, Harold Fannin. Hurts is stacked up with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. And Bo Nix is stacked up with RJ Harvey for a skinny stack. After my pick there at 114 for Godwin, we had Malik Willis go super early here at 115. Jonah Coleman, the rookie out of Washington, at 116. Juwan Jennings, followed by Matthew Golden and KC Concepcion at pick 119. And then off the board at pick 120, that's the last pick of the 12th round, the 10th round. We have George Kittle, followed by Kenyon Sadiq. So this guy here went 4 tight ends. That's interesting. He's doing this very running back, running back, running back, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, tight end, tight end, tight end, tight end. That's just way too much precision for me, I guess you could say, and I don't see how you don't naturally give up value trying to be so prescriptive. But maybe it works. We'll have to see if he gets out of this pod. Then, there you go. Okay. Let's see. We're going to go Jaden Higgins. Have to do it. Too much value here. Good situation down there in Houston. Second year player. Had a really good rookie campaign. Or at least showed a lot of promise. Came on a little bit at the end and also was doing really well during training camp. Obviously, the regular season's a different beast, but towards the end of the regular season, he really started to come on strong. Had a good playoff game. So I like him here, and that gets us our 6th at wide receiver. And we're getting into the meat of the running backs that I like, as well as tight end. So we'll probably be drafting a lot of running backs and tight ends in the next 6 to 7 rounds, but we'll just kind of have to see what the board gives us. As of right now, we're sitting on a 2-2-6-1 build. Can't say that it's super common that I'm in that scenario, but it is what it is. All right, 4 picks away. Putting this on record. Maybe this is the team. If it is, we'll have a record to look back on and analyze what we did that led us to a win. What was the strategy? What players did we take? Why did we take those players at their respective costs? One pick away. And he leaves us a handful of quarterbacks here. Don't really like any other picks on the board. I'm going to go ahead and go CJ Stroud. That gives us the stack with Jaden Higgins. We're sitting in a Jalen Hurts, Bo Nix, CJ Stroud quarterback room. Hard to argue that that's a really solid room with the rushing upside of both Hurts and Nix and the high passing volume of Stroud and Nix. We're light at running back and definitely need to make up some ground here quickly. And then we'll need to do some work, as I mentioned, in the running back and tight end rooms. But this is my point about structure. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, I've got to take James Conner because I'm behind at running back and I need to maintain structure. So I'm just going to grab Conner. I don't feel very confident about Arizona. I don't feel confident about a 32-year-old running back who's coming off of injury. I mean, he might have a great year, but there's better value later on down the board, and I'd rather just hammer running back down here because there's a lot of different choices. Whereas I don't love the running backs in this range. I do like the tight ends, but I don't like, the wide receivers in this range. I said running backs. I don't like the wide receivers. Really thins out at quarterback. So, but you're getting into a lot of good running backs down in this range. In particular, Rachaad White, Zach Charbonnet. Further on down, Kamani Vidal, Mike Washington Jr., Dylan Sampson. I mean, a whole bunch of good names reemerge in this area. Brian Robinson. Skip a handful of these over here. But the point being, I maintain strength at one position, and although this may be my weakest room, there's some ways I can build in some upside. Obviously, I'd like Mike Washington Jr., but he's going super early in some of these drafts. Pretty easy pick here for Rachaad White. Oftentimes he's my 4. In this case, he's going to be my 3. Doesn't really change things a whole lot. We'll just kind of see what the board gives us. But right now, Taylor Harvey White, I've seen worse. After this pick, we'll go ahead and recap the squad. Like Judy here too, but don't necessarily. And Pat Bryant kind of would be darn near closing out the wide receiver room. It's either Pat Bryant or Zach Charbonnet. I think I'm going to go Pat. Get that, turn that skinny stack into a double stack. Like his price, Zach Charbonnet is injured. Torn ACL late in the season. Pat Bryant here, a couple picks past ADP, but really I think he's the best player on the board in this range. And additionally, I get the stack with Bo Nix. So feel really good about these 7. Probably don't need a draft any more wide receivers if the board just doesn't really present good players from here on out. Then again, it may go, one more wide receiver. Additionally, there's a few more picks coming up here for running back that I like: Kamani Vidal, Dylan Sampson, Brian Robinson, Ray Davis. Some tight ends that we get into here in this range that I really like. Pretty much all of these tight ends. So gonna get to work now, even more so with the running backs, and we'll sprinkle in a tight end or two. We got 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 6 more picks to build a great best ball team. All right, I'm going to go Dylan Sampson. I understand that, the news is looking pretty good for Quinshon Judkins, but that was a pretty nasty injury. He's definitely a candidate for re-injury with something like that. Sampson at this price, either as a secondary piece to Quinshon or, a fill-in the event that he starts off on the pup or re-injures. His ankle obviously offers a lot of upside here, and he's involved in the passing game. So, like him more as a 5. This running back room's just turning out to be a little bit more lean, maybe than I'm accustomed to, but that's okay. There's still value on the board. Ways to make this pretty good running back room with a little extra depth. Oh, excuse me. Definitely thinking tight end here, simply because it really thins out. Yeah, it does. All right, I'm going to go Schultz. Gives me a stack. And I do have a lot of Hawkinson. I do think he's a maybe slightly better talent, but situation might be worse. So kind of mixing in Schultz, Ferguson, and Hawkinson here. Just given some of the uncertainty amongst each of those players. I'm looking at a third, but also need to, manage some more running back depth here. That's really the focus the rest of the way is running backs and another tight end. So we'll just have to kind of see what the board gives us here. It may also just be one of those rosters that's, just a little bit lighter at running back. If that's what happens, that's what happens. But there's at least 3 or 4 guys we can add. I've even forgotten about Jordan James, Quint Allen, potentially not a priority, but Jordan Lottie. Excuse me. Alani staying in Seattle. That's good. Alrighty. In deep thought, trying to figure out what I want to do here. Just kind of seeing how the board is playing out. All right, we'll go Ray. He's in a pretty good situation. Back up to James Cook, probably the highest valued handcuff, in the league potentially. Like that as I would say normally a 6th, but he could work as a 5. Still got to add a little bit more depth. Looking here at what's left to in these tight end rooms. At this point, maybe you just do go Evan Ingram. It's looking like it may play out that way. Focus on the running back with maybe another 2 picks. 3 picks total remaining. We will recap the team after this next pick. All right. 5 picks away. All right, Najee has our 6th here at pick 210. He is obviously coming back from injury, torn Achilles. Happened pretty early in the season, so he's already running. I imagine he will get signed once free agency opens. So, like that pick. We are currently operating a 3-6-7-2. I think Devin Neal or Jordan James would make a nice final pick in that running back room to get us to 7. I think with the way we kind of drafted early and then didn't get back for almost 100 picks, for actually slightly over 100 picks, it makes sense that we're going to try to tack on a little bit more volume here. But we got to be smart about it. I don't just want to take a running back for the sake of taking a running back. We'll see what's kind of on the board for us. Alrighty. We are 3 picks away. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. I may have got distracted on the last one, so we'll definitely recap the team after this pick. Or maybe we just wait. Let's see. We'll probably just wait until after that final pick. This guy seems pretty smart. But he went pretty heavy running back early, so we'll see what he decides to do here at the end. All right. It's between Devin Neal and Jordan James. I like the weaker division in New Orleans, coupled with the fact that I have a Tampa Bay player. So there's always a chance we could have a week 17 New Orleans Tampa Bay game, which could create a little bit of a 1v1 here. Tampa Bay's Chris Godwin with Devin Neal. So that gets us our 7th. I like that pick quite a bit. I think that's a nice solid 7 for this squad. And then try to grab Evan Ingram here for that final pick if he's there. Otherwise, we'll take a stab on Elijah Arroyo, like his upside. Could even just consider going directly with Arroyo, to be honest. Let's check in one thing real quick with Evan Ingram. Two-year. Huh. Okay. Well, we'll get one of these two. I think it's a little crazy that Evan Ingram's not even being drafted. Then again, there were some injury situations going on there. We'll go Evan Ingram. think it's the last pick to build a stack. It's a reasonable selection. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and recap the team, and then we'll wrap this puppy up. I like to try to keep these streams to an hour, get you guys in and out, get you a good draft, and then be on our way. But here we go for the recap. Drafting out of the 7 hole, I think that's one of the more difficult draft slots. We came up with a 3-7-7-3 symmetrical build. In the quarterback room, we have Jalen Hurts, Bo Nix, and CJ Stroud. Hard to argue with that room. I think we've got rushing upside, rushing touchdown upside, high volume passing upside. So lots of ways that we've built in strengths in that room. I'm going to give that an A. The running back room, we started off really with kind of like a hero build here. Jonathan Taylor, and then came back for RJ Harvey at 55, and then didn't see any more picks of running backs until pick 151, that being Rachaad White, followed by Dylan Sampson at 175, Ray Davis at 199, Najee Harris at 210, and finished things off with Devin Neal at 223. I'm going to give this room like a B. It's not my favorite running back room, but I think it's solid. It's got a lot of the players I target, but I was hoping for Monty there as my third, and then probably would have still played it similar. That being said, it didn't work out that way, so we move on. The wide receiver room, we have Malik Neighbors, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, Jaden Higgins, and Pat Bryant. Like this room a lot. Depending on how quickly Neighbors gets back, this room could smash. Pretty early and often, I'm going to go ahead and give this room an A-. I think it's a solid 7. Didn't draft any dead weight here. We've got 7 really good football players, most of which are elite at their position, and then a couple second-year guys that hopefully bring us like a year 2 breakout. So good solid A- in the wide receiver room. And then last but not least, our tight end room. We had Harold Fannin, Dalton Schultz, and Evan Ingram. Schultz and Higgins are stacked up with CJ Stroud, and then Evan Ingram, along with Pat Bryant and RJ Harvey, stacked up with Bo Nix. And then we have the rookie sensation, Harold Fannin, kind of leading the way there, 5 picks past ADP at pick 79. So decent room. Probably give that a B. Overall, I guess, with that being said, this is probably a B+ team. Got some different picks than I normally get. Strategy to kind of make sure I was strong in the different position groups came pretty well together. Overall, I'm happy with it and look forward to adding this to my portfolio. That being said, we are right at 1 hour. I like to keep things to 1 hour. So if you like this content, give me a follow on Twitter at FantasyFitIO or on YouTube at FantasyFitnessIO. So you'll be notified whenever I'm streaming. I'll be streaming hopefully 3 to 6 times a week, depending on my schedule. I hope you guys enjoyed that best ball draft. We'll be back again tomorrow in most likeliness, or we'll most likely be back tomorrow. And with that, I'm going to sign off, and we'll catch you soon. Peace.